Hello, welcome back to the technical track of MMM UK after the lunch break. Now we have Aidan Connor with the presentation Unleashing Next Gen Luxury. Aidan is the CTO at Asprey and will share a journey of integrating cutting-edge technologies such as next-gen compatibility, blockchain, and NFTs to propel Asprey to the forefront of the hyper-luxury market. Please give a huge round of applause for Aidan.
Hi guys. So yeah, the title of the presentation is Unleashing Next Gen Luxury. So what I want to run through with you today is some of the ways and some of the tactics and the projects that we've had going on over the last year and a half-ish, so that we can use these next generation technologies to gain competitive advantage. So a little bit of a video just to give you a flavor of Asprey. We're a 241-year-old luxury brand. Watch this now. So we are I guess, a quintessentially British hyper-luxury brand. We do silver, crystal, china, leather goods, jewelry, and we are world-renowned. Let's say we're 241 years old, so as with any company with that age, it comes with a lot of baggage, a lot of legacy systems, processes, things like that. So this is me, also proof that I do wear a shirt sometimes as well. And my role as Chief Technology Officer is to try and take, let's say, the latest and greatest of the technology that we have available to us to reinvent the way that Asprey is perceived. And our aim is to become the leading digital-first luxury brand. And some of the things that I said to you before that we will run through today will really start to show you, how we're trying to live up to that aim. As I think Jamie said this morning, is have an aim, even if it's potentially unachievable, and stick to it. So one caveat that we do have to that aim is we don't just want to put in technology for technology's sake. Like we've all been through that thing as in technology departments, which I'm sure most of you do work in, where you go, oh, we need an app. Why do you need an app? I don't know, because the competition's got an app. So we try to kill that mentality. So we want to be this digital first luxury leader, but we want to do it without compromising that customer experience. So it also means that we get to play with a lot of buzzwords. As we've heard, AI, NFTs, blockchain. I'm going to just mention all of them, right? So everyone's like, oh, I'm not going to mention AI. We're going through the ringer here, so I'll apologize in advance for that. But one thing I would say is, and the thing that I feel gives me actually the right to stand up on stage and use all these buzzwords is I'm not just doing this from a position of theory. Everything that I'm talking about today is live on production and working, tested-ish. Yeah, we just ask the developers if it works on their local, and then we launch it. So great way of QAing. So, come on. There we go. So first things first, we obviously had to set out a roadmap for what we were going to do. So obviously there's a lot of technologies out there, a lot of problems to solve within the business. So we started to look at this, how we were going to take a current position, and it may not necessarily work for every business, but obviously we took stock of where we were. And the first thing we had to do is we have a lot of content. So in order to sell luxury, it's all about the narrative, the story, the passion, the quality, the provenance of the product. So what we needed to do was kind of confine and consolidate all of that content into a single place. Then we needed to make ourselves e-commerce enabled. We didn't have product photography, pack shots, because everything we'd done was in store. So it was everything from product descriptions and pack shots all the way through to thinking about how do we then release pricing, things like that, as what is a very, very high end of the price bracket. Then analytics to understand on our first iteration of commerce, then starting to build in a platform where we get that content and commerce, and then finally to look at personalization. And the real key for us is that we laid some foundations, we started to measure what's going on with those foundations, we then look at how do we serve the 95th percentile really, really well, and then we move into making it personal. And all the way looking at those micro projects that we can go along to make that continuous improvement to support the overall journey. And of course, as it's an Adobe event, I can show you the Adobe products that we've invested in along the way. Obviously, you don't have to do this with Adobe products. But we chose to have a single stack. We don't have a massive team. We don't have massive budgets. So what was really important for us was to have a single stack where we call it the one throat to choke mentality. So that when something goes wrong, you don't get loads of providers going, it's him, it's him, it's him. Like we just go, Adobe, come on. And actually it works really well. It's a great partnership for us. And we are approximately here in the journey. So we're not actually really that great at personalization. I wish I could say we were. It's all been about taking us through this journey in the right time, the right method. So that gives you a bit of context where we are, how we do things, how we like to think. So some of our initiatives. Now, as I mentioned before, our initiatives, we like to start with a problem we want to resolve for the business, and then the outcome of that problem can take many forms. But the first problem that I want to tell you about is low brand awareness and low product knowledge. Before you'd heard today, how many of you knew or were aware of Asprey? Okay, so yeah, what's that, like 20% if we're lucky? So that is pretty indicative of the market. We're very expensive. We don't hide away from that. We don't do sales. We're not at the forefront of people's minds. So it means that when it comes to shopping in store and that omni-channel experience, actually what happens is that somebody comes into the store, they then have a salesperson who can tell them that narrative, show them the product, really get them to fall in love with the products. Online, we don't have that. We have a standard PDP. So we had to start to think about, with the website, how do we start to build in that knowledge about why our products sit, what's the justification, what's that allows them to sit and command such a price point. So this was where we kind of gone for our content and commerce journey. And actually, as I mentioned before, you can't sell luxury without telling a story. Not all products are sold in the same way. So as I mentioned before, we do silver crystal china, we do leather goods, we do jewelry, we do timepieces. So the way that you sell those, they require different layouts for PDPs, different kind of narratives, different kind of stories. So we needed a solution that was flexible enough to be able to do that. But we also needed to play to our strengths and use the commonality of our products, and that was the key to our success. So an example of what we did here was, so these two products, particular favorites of mine, no, I don't own them, is our Deco Bangle. As you can see, very, very similar, but what we wanted to do was reuse content fragments from the site. So we start to treat text and image-based content as an asset. So as you can see, top of the PDP, although you can't read it, but I would invite you to go and have a look at these products online. The product descriptions are completely unique to those products, so we're not using just like a configurable product, because for the price point, we need to tell the narrative. Why did we choose sapphires? Why did we choose diamonds? But actually, there are certain consistencies with those products, which is, for example, the 18-karat white gold. We're not going to write a different product description for 18-karat white gold for every single product. So by topping and tailing with product-specific, completely bespoke information, we can then fill the rest of this A+ product page with known assets from our DAM. So how does this look? So for us, and again, you don't need to use Adobe products for this, but this is the stack. But for our experience layer, we use Adobe Experience Manager sites where all content is managed. We then use a commerce integration framework to then integrate with Magento or Adobe Commerce as our commerce engine, and then integration further into SAP. And what this allows us to do is to be able to have that reutilization, that continuation of being able to then not only control how we distribute our content, but also be able to really do it in a way that doesn't then overextend the team. So we've got this great platform now, and then suddenly we get this thing of like, how do we fill it? And the next problem becomes supply chain velocity. So I told you we'd go through all the buzzwords here, right? So what was the problem with supply chain velocity is that actually we have, over 1,500 unique products, which it doesn't sound like a lot, probably to some of you who are like, wow, well, I've got 100,000. Well, that's great, good for you. So the 1,500 unique products, we've got to tell this narrative and really explain and convey the reason why they command a price point, anything of ours. Some of it's affordable in the hundreds of pounds, but you'll be able to find that thing cheaper elsewhere. Why is it that ours commands such a high price point? So this very rough diagram, if you can even call it that, essentially shows you what the problem was with our supply chain, is that the people who really know about our product enough to convey that passion, that heritage for the product, it was the category teams and the people who work in the workshops. So they had very little capacity to start writing loads of product descriptions from scratch. We then have a web authoring team who actually have then slightly more capacity, and then we have our most valued stakeholder, which is our customer, who has an infinite capacity to consume our content. So what was the solution? Was actually, buzzword again, generative AI. Yay. So the 50K view on this, and this is where we start to get my crude technical diagrams start to become very complicated. So we started with our product master data. So what we were really good at was containing our product master data in our spec sheets, where we would know like the number of carats some diamonds are, the number of carats gold, where the leather has been sourced from, something like that. But it wasn't in an econ friendly description. So what we did, and keep in mind that our product category teams don't have the capacity to write all 1,500. So we used Office 365 Excel sheet. You can also use Google Sheets to do this, to take what we would call the raw data, the untreated, the literally just bullet pointed facts basically about our product. We also took a prompt library, which I'll explain more about in a second, but then fed both of them into GPT 3.5. Why didn't we use GPT 4, I hear you ask? Because we did it before GPT 4 was available. So then out of GPT 3.5, you get what we call the enriched version, which is where we then have these Excel sheets, these product descriptions. Now, the interesting thing there is that obviously it's not perfect first time around. It requires a lot of learning. So we do, of course, then export them for human review. So there are a number of different outcomes at that point. It could be so utterly garbage that actually what we have to do is we have to put it back through the loop, and it needs to just be started again. And that happened a lot. Then you have the ones where maybe it needs a little bit of refining, just a tweak here and there, a reordering of paragraphs, whatever it is. So we were able to do that. Or, of course, then we can pop it live. So that's kind of keep that in mind. Now, that depending on where you are, where your brain is at the moment with AI and things like that, that may seem either really simple or really complicated. It's kind of both. But one thing that remains true is it's fast, but it is really not easy. So what I wanted to do was share some of the insights that we've got, so that if you want to do something similar, then you'll be able to get to the journey quicker than we did. The first thing is tone of voice. So actually what we tried to do is we started to try and use things like we're using words like humble or hyperluxury or whatever to try and give a tone of voice. What we realized was that actually the GPT API's engine understands words in a way that clearly is not the same as what we do, and it wasn't accurate enough. So what we found was that actually a human writing a handful of descriptions that are then referenced within every prompt as an example of how we write, how we want it to write, actually allowed us to get far more accuracy. So what we're having to do is, it's the classic garbage in, garbage out, and actually referenced examples were far superior and to kind of just trying to like hacky prompts, if you like. The next one was inference. So again, this kind of comes to the weighting. So when we said things like hyper luxury, because that's how we describe ourselves and how we do it conversationally, when we started to get this for like some kind of like a spoon with a baby spoon, then, which is a christening gift, it was like way over egging the pudding, and it was absolutely terrible. So, you know, you can never put that out standard verbose, and boastful, and it just wasn't on brand. So actually, we started having to, that's when we had the prompt library, where we needed to bring different prompts in for different types of, for different categories of product. The next one was, again, which kind of comes into this one, which is you could never rely on a single prompt to do everything. And then the one after that was a lot of absolute commands led to a lot of fluff. So you'd say things like, write me a product description that's 200 words. What it would do is add in summary at the end, it starts to repeat itself, and you end up with like a lot of flowery language in there, which again leads to an inaccuracy and starts to do things like dilute the message that you're trying to convey. And what I would say is, again, some of the prompts that we started to write were like 500 to 1,000 words. And yes, they're generated from an Excel sheet, but, you know, you're not going to do the scale of what we've done with like 30-word prompts that you just hack together really quickly. So suddenly what we've got is that during this content supply chain is we've got the category teams suddenly get freed up to do a hell of a lot more. Then the web authoring team become the problem because they can't upload it as fast as what the category teams are doing. And again, the user's an infinite amount of consumption for the content. So we've basically created a different kind of blocker. Well done us, round of applause. So then we get the content authoring blockers. So traditionally what we were doing was content team were authoring something in some form of Office. Then we get the web authoring, which happens in either Adobe Commerce or Experience Manager, and then to the customers. Now, these category teams, they are real people who are doing like real things with their hands. They're not like us lot who are just kind of like doing things on keyboards. They are real practical people. So trying to say, the obvious thing is, well, just teach them how to use Experience Manager or Adobe Commerce or Magento, whatever you want to call it. Well, actually, these guys are not about to learn that. And I think you can see from the things here, like they do real work, right? So with Adobe's next-gen, so we threw the problem to Adobe, and they said, well, we've got this thing called next-gen composability, and I won't go too far into it, but essentially with a little bit of magic, what they do is they ingest Word documents, turn it into XML, and then you can push that straight to your site. So then suddenly, actually what we managed to do was the category teams are getting freed up massively because we're getting rid of that blank canvas problem they had. The web authoring team just need to QA and check, and then the user consumption. So what we've done is we've resolved two problems, and suddenly our content velocity has gone through the roof. So in that way, we've gone from days to hours to minutes in terms of our ability to push and publish content. So next, and I think final one, is the purchasing of physical goods as an investment is a liability. So I don't know if many of you bought a watch because you say, oh, it'll go up in value, or wine, whiskey. A lot of people can buy these things, and they buy them as an asset to appreciate. So, and the same happens with a lot of our products, particularly our jewelry. So what we find is, the problem is that actually when you buy something like this, you don't want to wear that watch, you don't want to wear that necklace, you just want to keep it in a safe. So then it becomes a liability. You've got to insure it, you've got to do whatever. So we partnered with, physical ownership. So yeah, cost to store, cost to insure, multiple parties involved when buying and selling, and then also the transportation of the physical item at the point of sale becomes a hassle. So what we did is we wanted to set out and say, how are we able to have only the buyer and the seller involved in this equation? So the solution was phygital. So we using NFTs and money, as you can see, it's very complicated, this diagram, guys. If I see any of you copy this one, I'm going to kill you. So essentially, by using an NFT as the right to purchase, what you're able to do is have a buyer send an NFT within a single transaction and receive money in return for this thing. Now, this isn't a monkey that gives you access to a fictional club. What this is a piece of art that stands up as a thing of beauty in its own right, but also this entitles you to a solid silver sculpture, in this case of a Bugatti. And what this allowed us to do was mean that somebody can purchase the NFT as an asset in itself, and then be able to then, when the real value comes from the sculpture, and actually never have to physically have the liability of having the sculpture until it gets to its forever home, and then nobody needs to inform us that the NFTs moved on, because you can't fake them, you can't forge them. Not from a redemption point of view. Obviously, you can right-click, copy-paste, that's fine. But the whole thing with it is that actually this solid silver sculpture is, if you want that and you want to redeem it, then that's kind of, it becomes a forever home, and you have it as an object of art. And in that way, you know, we suddenly solve a problem that has been around for quite literally hundreds of years. So as we've been doing before, the 50K foot view is we have experience manager sites for people who want to transact through fiat. We have our Magento stack, which I showed you before. And then for everybody else, they can pay on chain using a React.js component, which talks to blockchain. If anybody wants any more information on that, obviously you see me later. And that is it, because I've been getting the white paper of doom saying that I'm done.